By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith Abel still speaks even though he is dead.
So today we start a brand new series called The Hall of Faith. And what do these names have in common? Okay, this is a quiz, interactive moment here. You ready? Hank Aaron, Joe DiMaggio, Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson, Mickey Mantle. Home runs. Baseball. Baseball what? Baseball Hall of Fame. How about this? The Beatles, Def Leppard, Jimi Hendrix, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Rock and roll what? Hall of Fame. Okay, this one's harder. This one's more fun. This is because I'm a father of little kids. The Philly Fanatic, Benny the Bull, Slugger, Mr. Met, Brutus Buckeye. Mascots what? In the Mascots Hall of Fame. Did you know there was such a thing? Now you want to go, right? You want to go see this. To be included in the Hall of Fame is just I would imagine, a tremendous honor, recognizing those that stand above the rest. These are people that stand above the crowd. They're exemplary in their discipline or their sport. It's a celebration of their accomplishments, right? And of how they outperform their contemporaries. Celebrating those that had something really special or unique about them. And we hold them in high regard, and we go to their shrines, and we visit the museums and remember their accomplishment. And even more than that, these people can serve as kind of a model of excellence and inspiration for those that come behind them. If you want to be in the Hall of Fame, you can model yourself after these people. And the people of God had their own Hall of Fame, right? I don't know if you know this, but it included people like Abraham, the first father of God's people, the one who trusted God even with his own son on a rock with a knife. And how about Noah, the man who obeyed God when it seemed ludicrous to obey God, and he started building a cruise liner when they hadn't seen rain for years, right? Or how about Moses, the man who led the people out of slavery in Egypt and to the edge of the good life, or David, the great king, a man after God's own heart, or Solomon, who came and built the temple, or Rahab, the protector of God's people, or even Gideon, the one who led the army that God whittled away and whittled away and whittled away, and yet he went forward. You see, if you were a Jew, if you were an Israelite, if you were part of God's people, these were your Hall of Fame. These are the people who excelled at life with God. These were the models of how you tried to build your life and what the best life looked like. And these are the people who were celebrated and remembered for their accomplishment. So when the author of the book of Hebrews, which is where we're going to be at today, Hebrews chapter 11, when he writes this letter to the church of Jewish believers, these are Israelite people who were raised in the Israelite religion. Now they've come to believe in Jesus. When he writes to them, we aren't surprised that he points at these people. He says, remember these heroes of yours. Yet it's super interesting how he talks about them. It's really interesting the slant or the angle he uses to discuss their greatness. It's fascinating to listen to what in his mind separates them and makes them special and what they all share in common. Because when you think about the Hall of Fame, you often think about what people have accomplished, right? You think about 3,000 hits in baseball, or 1,000 catches in the NFL, or you think about how many platinum albums a band has had to include them. These are the actions that we celebrate, but these are the result of something that's more fundamental that every person in the Hall of Fame has in common. Maybe it's a physical giftedness. They were just uniquely gifted by the Lord. Or maybe it's hard work and determination. I know that it's probably a sense of drive and a sense to want to accomplish great things, or maybe fearlessness or creativity. But these people aren't just great because of what they accomplished. In the Hall of Faith, these people are great because something drove them to accomplish so much. You see, these people that I just mentioned, they don't share accomplishments. All their accomplishments are a little bit different. But they do share this attribute that really makes them special. And the author of Hebrews wants his readers to understand that the common attribute of every hero in their family was faith. That's what made them unique. Look how he describes each member in the hall of faith. This is straight from Hebrews 11. By faith, Abel. By faith, Enoch. By faith, Noah. By faith, Abraham. By faith, Isaac. By faith, Jacob. By faith, Moses. In other words, in Hebrews chapter 11, the Israelite hall of fame has just become the hall of faith. Because he's trying to tell us what matters most in a life of greatness. What makes you belong in the family of God? What makes you unique and stand out in relationship to the rest of the world? And the author of Hebrews is telling us in this moment, it's not about what you accomplish, it's about the attribute of faith. And this is what faith is, Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. It's the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. This is your ticket to greatness. This is the exemplary life before God. So to understand faith, we got to see its relationship to hope. Okay, so just real quickly, I'm setting kind of the foundation for the hall of faith. We have faith and we have hope, and the two are sometimes confused, but definitely related. But here's the thing about hope. Hope is often just interpreted or confused for optimism. It's kind of this generalized desire for good things to come in the future. So you and I hope for a better world, a more kind world. We hope for heaven. We hope for our kids to succeed. But faith goes a step further. Faith is the confidence and assurance in those things we hope for. We're confident and assured of them because God has promised these things. In other words, faith is the conviction that what we hope for will actually happen, not by happenstance, but because God's promise and plan. Faith isn't wishful thinking. Faith is trusting belief in and dependence on God. So the writer of Hebrews concedes that he can't really teach you faith. This isn't going to be an exercise in which we tell you what it means to have faith. He can't give you faith. It can't be inherited from your parents. Maybe your parents were very faith-filled people. It can't be inherited. But there's really good news this morning. Faith can be developed in practice. You can practice faith and grow in your faith. So in chapter 11, he says, look again at our Hall of Fame, church. Look at these heroes of the faith and see it as a hall of faith. May these stories inspire you to fight for more faith, to not abandon the faith that you have. May it give handles and definitions to kind of an abstract reality. So for the next few weeks, we're going to look at different characters in the Israelite Hall of Faith. Doesn't that sound like fun? We're going to look at their stories and be inspired by the lives they lived and what made them unique and special. And we start today with the story of two brothers. It's actually the story of the first ever two brothers. They're the first. It's a story from Genesis 4 about Adam and Eve's two sons, Cain and Abel. And it's actually the first of many stories in the Bible about brothers. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but after Cain and Abel, you hear about Ishmael and Isaac. And after them, you hear about Jacob and his brother Esau and Joseph and his many brothers. And you remember that story that Jesus told in the New Testament about the prodigal son and his older brother. In each story of brothers, there's this invitation to compare and contrast the two brothers. And I think that's why Scripture likes to use brothers in their stories, because it gives us an opportunity to put them next to each other and to compare them. What makes the brothers the same and what makes them different? Which one was right and which one was wrong? Which one acted justly and which one acted foolishly and brought shame? And when we read about these brothers in Scriptures, we find ourselves in the story. That's the hope, that we can relate to the story, identifying with either one brother or another. And my hope for you this morning is that you wouldn't just begin to identify yourself with either one brother or the other, but you would also see within yourself each brother. Each brother is present, I believe, in each of us. And so the question for you today is, where do you find yourself in this story from Genesis chapter 4? This is the story of Cain and Abel. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offerings, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. And can you blame him? Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." Should have been a warning. It's kind of a weird request. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel, and he killed him. And then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Look at the defensiveness here. "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." So here's a story of two brothers coming before God to present a gift or an offering. Their parents have taught them well. Adam and Eve have learned that they can't just operate on their own, but their lives must be about honoring their God. And they know they're a part of a bigger story. They belong to a bigger picture. So they bring these gifts to God, these offerings to give to the Lord in worship. And it's important to note before we move on that this is a story about two worshipers. This isn't a story about an atheist and a believer. This isn't a story about somebody who loved God and somebody who didn't love God. This is a story about two people in church. These are two God worshipers, two believers. In fact, they probably had a lot in common, don't you think? You think Cain and Abel looked alike, probably acted a lot alike, even saw the world through similar lenses because they had the same experience. They know the same stories from their parents. They've had the same experiences in their family life, and they even practice worshiping God together. Isn't that interesting? They came together. Yet the writer of Hebrews reminds us today that one acted in faith and pleased God, and the other one did not. And the writer of Hebrews makes this value judgment between Cain and Abel. And it's pretty clear in chapter 11, verse 4. We're back in Hebrews now. This is what the writer of Hebrews says about Abel. "By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offering. And by faith, Abel still speaks, even though he's dead." And this question that this story should prompt in us is, why in the world did God approve and value one offering and not approve and not value the other offering? What distinguished Abel's gift from that of his brother? And in the Genesis account, God doesn't explain himself. Don't you hate that? God doesn't tell us why, and he doesn't tell Cain why. All he does is say, "Cain, why are you so angry?" But he doesn't tell him why he chose like he chose, to favor one and not the other. He judges how he sees fit. And the lack of explanation in Genesis leads some people to read that to say that we're supposed to gather from that the Lord is arbitrary, that he does what he wants, that we can't figure him out, and we shouldn't place that demand on him to explain himself. That's one way to view the scripture in Genesis, but the writer of Hebrews has a whole nother opinion. He thinks that there's distinction between the gifts. He's reading the story and hearing the story told and determining that one gift has distinction and one does not. And what's interesting is if you look, it's not at all about what they bring It's how they bring the gift. In faith, by faith, Abel brought his gift. One brought a sacrifice of faith and one did not. One brought a gift that revealed faith, the other did not. One gave to God in trusting dependence, and one did not. So what is an offering of faith? What does it mean to give our gifts to God in faith? As I studied this passage this week and as I've prayed about what to say to you today, this is how I sense God leading me to interpret the story. That an offering of faith modeled by Abel is a gift given to God that is our first and our best. Look again real quick at Genesis 4. This is the story in Genesis of Cain and Abel. Again, we've already read this. But look at this. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering. And then it goes on to describe that offering. Fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. And the Lord looked at that with favor. Cain's gift isn't described in any detail, right? He's just brought some of the fruit. But Abel's gift is described with two important things of note. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, and he brought the choicest cuts of meat. Abel's gift was his first and his best. And this is what reveals that Abel gave out of faith, in my opinion. You see, it's one thing to give to the Lord out of an abundance and out of security. But it's another thing to give before you ever have anything. And when Abel gives from the firstborn of his flock, what he is saying is that you can have my gift before I ever know what's coming after my gift. Before I can ever build this life for myself. Before I can ever see how big my flock will grow to be. Before I can ever take confidence in the other things that I have, you can have my first and my best. To give of the firstborn is to give before you know what's coming after. And this is giving in faith. Unfortunately, we often give to God like we give to our dogs. Or at least I give to my dog. I don't know, maybe you're a better person than me. If you come to me and you set a steak dinner down in front of me and my dog's sitting there begging, I'm going to eat that steak dinner and then I'm going to lick the silverware and my fingers and maybe the plate, I don't know. I'm going to eat that best part. I'm going to savor it. And then when I'm all done, if there's any gristle left over, if there's any parts that we kind of trimmed off, I might take it over to the dog bowl and give the dog what's left. That's a silly illustration. I understand that. But how often am I guilty of saying to God, God, if you can give me enough to be content, and then if you can provide a little bit of excess so that I have some margin, then I will give some to you. Oh God, my time and energy are demanded of me here, there, and everywhere. But after I've given to anything and everyone that demands of me, if I have any left, it's all yours, God. Or my energy is just sucked dry by my job and my family and my neighbors and civic duty and all of these things. My schedule is packed to the tilt. But Lord, if there's a cancellation, God, if there's some way where I can shift and move, then Lord, it's all yours. You can have it. My budget is tight. I've got bills and debts and projects coming down the line, but God, whatever's left, it's yours. Whatever is in excess, you can have. Yet the heart that God intends for us is a heart that trusts Him first. This practiced by giving God our first. So before my schedule runs away from me, I trust you with my time. Before my budget swells on me and everybody's budget swells on them, God, I trust you with my money. Before my health is diminished and my energy is sapped and my day is gone, before I give you my best and I trust you. You see, the truest evaluation of your gift to God is not how much is given, but it's really how much is left after you give. You remember the story Jesus told? He goes with his disciples and he's watching people worship, and he sees these rich people give in the offering plate out of their excess these really extravagant gifts to the Lord. And then he sees this poor old widow who comes and drops 2 pennies in the plate. And Jesus says, guys. Look. I want you to see something. You see that lady? She just gave her livelihood. She trusts me. Did you see that? She doesn't know what she's going to eat. She doesn't know how she's going to pay for college. She doesn't know how she's going to make rent. But she thinks I can do it. Oh, do you see that? And they said, you got to be kidding me. 2 pennies? What does that even matter? God says she gave me first. Yes, we can please the Lord. This isn't just a sermon about money. This is a sermon about our lives. What is the offering you're placing in front of Jesus? Is it your first, and is it your best? Faith is giving first before you've had the chance to figure it all out. And faith is giving your best. Look at verse 4 again. Abel gave the fat portions of his animal. The original language here, I was looking at how it can be interpreted, and one of the things it says he gave the choice cuts of meat, the best part of the animal. You see, Abel wasn't trying to do what was expected of him. He was giving his best in love to God. There was no holding back or no reservations, no worrying what would be left for him after all was said and done, but he gave his best. And isn't it interesting that both brothers brought an offering? It's not like Abel brought something and Cain forgot to. They both brought an offering, yet one was maybe brought from a sense of obligation and duty, and one was brought with passion and love and decadence. You see, sometimes if you're anything like me, we give to the Lord out of a sense of obligation because we're afraid of what might happen if we don't. Or we're worried about what others may think of us, or we're unwilling to let somebody down. And so we give our offering to the Lord, but if we're honest with ourselves, it's kind of because we feel like we have to. And God is saying to us today, I'm not so much impressed by your obligatory gifts. And here's the thing that really makes me angry about obligatory gifts in my own life is when I give out of obligation, I often kind of take on this sense of entitlement. Because I've given to you what you've expected of me, now you will, in return, fill in the blank, right? Because I've checked this box, that means there's windfall coming on the other side. And if we're not careful, giving out of obligation kind of turns us into brats. We're expecting God to somehow return favor for the things that we've given to him. But listen to this. When we give our best from a place of love and wanting to be a blessing to God, then we can receive from God however he sees fit. We can trust him to do whatever he sees is best in our situation. So giving our best is actually this weird way of saying, Lord, I trust you to work in this situation however you see best. That's the life I want to live. A life where God doesn't get what's left because I have to, but God gets what's first because I want to. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. That's hard. Really? A better offering? If you're not careful, it becomes this thing like, am I not measuring up? Am I not good enough? What kind of expectations are you placing on me, Pastor? And let me take you back to the beginning of this sermon where I talked about the intention of the writer of Hebrews is to say the Hall of Fame, the way this life was meant to be lived, is lived best when you are practicing faith. I would venture to say that God couldn't care less about the nature of your gift. What he cares about is how are you bringing your gift and your offering to him? What is the status of your heart? What is the status of my heart? Am I coming in faith with a gift that was first and a gift that was best? My question for you today is, do you want to develop your faith muscle? Do you want to become what God intended you to become? Do you want to flex in the life that he's given you? Maybe you would say, Pastor, if I'm honest, today my faith is kind of in shambles. And really, I'm here because this is a step of faith in a sense, because I don't know what else to do. I haven't sensed God's presence for years. Nothing in my life is going the way I wish it would. My faith is a mess. It's weakened and intermittent. I wonder if you would take encouragement today, not from this expectation that the church places on you, but this invitation from the writer of Hebrews is, what if you practiced and developed your faith? What if you put it to the test? What if you took inspiration from Abel this morning? So as we move throughout the series, I want to give you some weekly exercises. If we're going to develop our faith, let's exercise together. In the church, we're really committed to knowing better, right? You just listen to me for 25, 30 minutes on how to think, how to know better, but we're actually usually pretty lousy in practicing together. Like, how do you take what you know and implement it into your life? So I want to help you practice faith like Abel. If you want to, you can take your phone out. This is the time you might take notes or you snap a picture. And these are just some ideas where you can, with me this week, exercise your faith. Not just a state of our hearts, but really the practice of our life. That's what this series is about. How do we put into practice this faith? So here's our first week's exercise. It's pretty simple. What if we give God our first? What if this week, for the next 6 days, we gave God our first 5 minutes? When you wake up, give him the first 5 minutes. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means a worship song, prayer, scripture. Maybe it means silence, where you're not even thinking or praying anything. You're just going to sit still. Or what if you give God your first app open? If you're like me, from my generation, the first thing you do in the morning is usually pop your phone up and open an app. Maybe it's the weather app, calendar app, social media, sports. I don't know what it is. But what if we exercise our faith by giving God our first app open? Throw the YouVersion app on your phone and open up the Word of God. Or this is a good practice for me because I'm not good at this. I fall into ruts. But what if we gave God our first payment? A lot of payments out of my accounts come automatically, just taken out. But what if after your paycheck, you made it a point to practice faith in this way, and you said, God, I'm giving you this first payment. Maybe it's a payment to the church. Maybe it's a payment to a neighbor who needs something, who's desperate for something in their life. Maybe it's a payment on a debt that you owe that is crippling you. But what if we gave God that first payment? And then, how do you give God your best this week? I love this idea. What if you just choose a simple moment and go over the top for your spouse or your kids or your friend or your neighbor? Just do something over the top. Buy them flowers, show up unexpected, cook the biggest meal you've ever cooked, write them a song. I don't know. Do something crazy. Let's go over the top because this is an exercise. It may not be this offering we give to God, but it's an exercise in how we respond to the people we love. Give God our best. Or what if you just identified, what is the best thing about me? What am I best at? What do people most appreciate about what I offer to the world? And what if we decided in just one way this week, one way, I'm not making this complicated, one way we're going to use what's best about us for the sake of God's kingdom, for the sake of God's benefit. What do you think? Everybody see something they think they could do this week to flex the muscle of your faith, your weekly exercise? Give God your first. Give God your best. If you hate these ideas, that's fine. Come up with your own. Give God your first and give God your best. And I believe as we do, we will develop the muscle of faith. Heavenly Father, I'm so glad that you don't work and think the same ways we do. Lord, and it's a struggle for me that not every gift given is the same in your eyes, but you see the giver's heart. You don't even explain it to us in Genesis, what makes Abel's heart so pure and so worthwhile, but you've challenged us in this moment to respond to you in faith. So God, if there are expectations that were laid upon people's shoulders today, would you destroy them? Would you tear them away? You are not a God of guilt and shame and obligation. Would they instead hear an invitation from their Creator that says, would you trust me? Would you fall in love with me? Would you give me your first and your best? Help us as we practice this week, Lord. May we notice, give us ways where we notice how flexing this faith muscle changes the world around us and changes the peace we have within us. Because we're staking everything we have on this, Lord, that we're going to follow after you the best way we know how, and believing that as we do, we will find that life everlasting that you promised in Scripture. So may it be so by your grace and your power and your strength. In your name, amen.